evening, everyone. I'm Camille Whitworth, and welcome to the WDSC News Hot Seat. The elections are Tuesday, and tonight we're focusing attention on what many consider to be the biggest race on the North Shore, the race to replace Walter Reed as district attorney in St. Tammany and Washington parishes. So let's welcome now the candidates, all of them Republicans, and they're seated here alphabetically, left to right. Alan Black, Roy Burns, and Warren Montgomery. Brian Traynor was asked to be here. He told us he could not attend this evening. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Let's get straight to it, shall we? Why are we best for the job? Let's start with you, Mr. Montgomery.
Camille, because I have the experience both in law enforcement as a prosecutor, a federal prosecutor, as a defense attorney in private practice, and also as a businessman. And the combination of those three experiences make me the most qualified.
Mr. Burns.
Yes, experience and independence. I've got 38 years of practice in law. I've been involved in our community for 38 years with honesty and integrity. I intend to restore honesty, integrity, and transparency back to the office of district attorney.
Mr. Black.
Experience and the independence. Independence is a very key feature here in this race, and I'm not loyal to anyone. I'll be able to make my own decisions, and that allows me to bring integrity back into the game, which is very much needed here.
Brian Traynor, not able to be here this evening. Gentlemen, your thoughts on that?
Well, I can understand him not wanting to be here because there have been some statements about his campaign and about his involvement in some activities which are suspect at best.
I'm too good of a lawyer to speculate on why he's here or why he's not here.
Mr. Black?
I think there's concerns that he should be here, and it's not totally fair to the voters that are reviewing and looking at this program to not have direct answers from him to answer those concerns.
I think let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that, of course, is the black eye that's been on the parish and the current DA's office now. What are your thoughts on what's happening there, and what do you plan to do to restructure that?
Well, personally, let me say this. There is a big bear in the woods, and that is what's going on in St. Tammany Parish. I intend to make major changes, and that change is going to begin with me. I intend to have a work ethic that's going to be unbelievable, and I'm going to expect my district attorneys who work under me to have a work ethic and be prepared every day.
How bad is that black eye, do you guys think? Is it overcomable? Absolutely.
I think that you need a change at the head of the organization, and with the proper leadership, we can restore the integrity and get people back to prosecuting crimes the way they should be.
And the black eye that does exist is it's overcomable, but it's going to take a while. And the integrity, and it does start from the top, but the morale and the staff and the whole operation needs to start from ground zero and start over and rebuild the trust that's been lost.
Let's talk now about crime in the area as the top prosecutor. Number one, what do you think the number one problems with crime are right now, and what is your plan to fix it?
Well, there's different problems in different parts of the two parishes. In Bogalusa, for instance, there have been 7 murders in the last month, principally tied to the drug trade. So we need to focus on eliminating the drug trade, and that'll eliminate those murders. In St. Tammany Parish, there's a great deal of property crime that needs to be addressed, and there's some seeping crime regarding drugs into the Slidell area, and we need to work together to try to solve that and tap that down.
Actually, what I think the issue is really violent crime, and that's on the rise in St. Tammany Parish. So what I intend to do as your district attorney is to reallocate the resources of the district attorney's office away from property crimes and drug crimes for nonviolent persons to people who have hurt others. I intend to be a first chair seat and prosecute murders and rapes and armed robberies. I know how to prosecute a case, and I'm going to do it personally.
Yeah, the crimes are, we're not immune in either of the parishes from the drug problems that infiltrate 80% of our violent crimes, and those must be addressed all across the board. And better use of our specialty courts and better use of our mental health treatment versus incarcerating everyone is a way I'm going to start my DA race.
Let's talk about the relationship that you would have with law enforcement. How will that affect your platform and what you intend to run on?
Well, I will work with the sheriff, but I won't work for the sheriff. So the district attorney needs to be independent of the sheriff, but work with them. Their job is to investigate crimes and to make arrests, And my job as the district attorney is to prosecute those cases and put the guilty in jail and make sure that people who are innocent aren't charged to begin with.
Do you all feel there's been a problem or a rift, if you will, between the two entities over the years?
I can tell you this from the standpoint, having practiced 38 years as well as 6 of those years as a prosecutor in the 22nd Judicial District, I have a partnership and I'm reaching out to everyone in law enforcement. I know them on a first-name basis in terms of the Sheriff's Office and the local chiefs of police and their offices. I intend to be a partner with them. That partnership with me has gone on an extremely long period of time. And in addition to that, one of the things that the district attorney can do is to train and teach law enforcement how to do a job that is better than they're currently doing it now. So
Mr.
I'll
Blunt.
partner with them.
Thank you. Mr. Blunt,
Yes.
what are your thoughts
well,
on that?
Law enforcement is critical to have a professional arm's length relationship with. But I think it's also critical if you have a DA that is beholding to the sheriff. So that is too much of a connection, too much of a concentration of power that must be avoided. The DA must stand on his own, must be independent, must make his own decisions, and he has to work with the sheriff, but that's the only extent of on a professional basis.
All right, we have a lot of questions to get to, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your answers so far. We'll be right back. We have to pause for a quick break, but many more questions to come when we come back.